Sometimes the biggest stories come from the most unexpected places. This is one of those. It's the story of a Hindu monk, a spiritual leader who had zero political ambition, who somehow ended up in a massive fight against the full power of the Indian state. It started out as a simple dispute over land, but it turned into a battle for the very soul of a nation's constitution.
And at the absolute heart of this whole thing is this document, the preamble to the Constitution of India. You have to understand, this isn't just dry legalese. It's a promise of justice, of liberty, of equality for a brand new nation. But back in the early 1970s, that promise was about to be put to the ultimate test.
And this is our unlikely hero, Keshvanand Bharti. Look, he wasn't a political firebrand. He was the head of a monastery that was centuries old, a patron of the arts, a classical musician, and a spiritual guide. A man of peace, really. Which, of course, makes what happened next all the more incredible.
So that's the big question here, isn't it? How on earth did this one man's struggle to protect his religious institution spiral into the single most important legal case in India's entire history? A case that, and this is no exaggeration, would end up saving its democracy. All right, let's dive in. To really get what was at stake, we need to know the players, and we need to understand the conflict that basically set them on a collision course. So Keshvanand Bharti, he became the head of the Ednir Mutt in Kerala when he was just 21. And this wasn't just a job, right? It was a spiritual legacy. The Mutt was a huge deal in the region. It ran schools, farms, and it was a major cultural hub. And on the other side, you have the state. You have to remember, this is post-independence India, and the country was grappling with just immense poverty and inequality. The government, especially the communist government in Kerala at the time, saw land reform as absolutely essential. Their goal was to redistribute land from big landowners to those who had none. It was all about social and economic justice. And here is the flashpoint, the Kerala Land Reforms Act. This law basically gave the state the power to take over the Mutt's huge land holdings. For Bharti, this wasn't just about losing some property. It threatened the Mutt's very ability to do its spiritual and charitable work. He saw it as a violation of his fundamental right to manage religious affairs. Now, this whole thing could have just stayed a local dispute in Kerala. But it ran headfirst into a much, much bigger power struggle that was already brewing on the national stage. We're talking about a high-stakes showdown between India's parliament and its Supreme Court. Let's just walk through this because it's like a rapid-fire power play. In '67, the Supreme Court says Parliament cannot touch the Constitution's fundamental rights, period. Well, Parliament did not like that one bit, so boom, they fire back with the 24th Amendment, giving themselves the power to amend anything in the Constitution. Then, the 25th Amendment, which waters down property rights and tells the courts to back off. And then, and this is the real kicker for our story, the 29th Amendment, which took those exact Kerala land laws and put them in a special category, basically shielding them from any legal challenge. Parliament was building a fortress around its own power, brick by brick. So you see, this is where the monk's little land dispute became the perfect storm. His case was suddenly the ultimate test of Parliament's brand new, nearly unlimited powers. The stage was set for a legal battle of epic proportions. To hear this case, the Supreme Court put together a bench of 13 judges. Just let that number sink in. That was, and still is, the largest bench ever assembled in the history of India. And the hearing itself, it went on for 68 days. Again, the longest ever. The arguments were so profound, the stakes were so high, the entire country was holding its breath. And leading the charge for the monk was this absolute legal genius named Nani Palkivala. His argument went beyond just the law. It was philosophical. He boiled the entire crisis down to this one beautiful idea. The Constitution created Parliament. So how could the thing that was created, he argued, have the power to destroy its own creator? So what it all came down to were these two totally clashing worldviews. On one side, Bharti's lawyers argued that Parliament's power has to have limits. You can't just amend the core identity of the Constitution out of existence. But the state argued the opposite. They said Parliament's power to amend is absolute, and that it's necessary for social reform, even if that means changing fundamental rights. This left the court with a question that seems almost impossible to answer. In a democracy, who really has the final say? Where does power ultimately, truly lie? I mean, think about it. Could one branch of government, even if it's elected by the people, just get a blank check to rewrite the entire rulebook of the nation? Could they, in theory, vote to end democracy itself? That was the terrifying possibility that was really at the heart of this case. And the court's answer was, well, it was pure genius. It's called the Basic Structure Doctrine. It's this incredible compromise. The court said, okay, yes, Parliament, you can amend the Constitution. It needs to be a living document. But, and this is the huge but, you cannot damage or destroy its basic structure. The best analogy is a house. You can renovate the rooms, you can paint the walls, you can put in a new kitchen, but you cannot take a sledgehammer to the foundation and the load-bearing walls. So what are those load-bearing walls? Well, things like the supremacy of the Constitution itself, a democratic form of government, secularism, the separation of powers between the different branches of government, the power of the courts to review laws. These, the court said, are the fundamental pillars of the republic, and they are completely off-limits.
Now get this historic, nation-defining doctrine that protects India to this day, it passed by the slimmest possible margin, a 7-6 decision. A single vote determined the future of India's constitutional democracy. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. The drama was just immense.
And this is where we get to the profound, and honestly, deeply ironic legacy of this whole affair. Because while the Constitution definitely won, our protagonist, the monk, well, he didn't.
Here's the great irony of the whole story. On the specific issue of his monastery's land, Keshvanand Bharti actually lost his case. The Supreme Court upheld the Kerala law. But in losing his own personal battle, his challenge handed India an immeasurable victory. It created this basic structure doctrine, a permanent safety valve for the Constitution itself.
And that safety valve has been absolutely crucial ever since. It's acted as the ultimate check on any government trying to overreach. It ensures that no matter how big a majority a political party has, they cannot use that power to dismantle the core democratic and secular foundations of the nation. The monk from Kerala gave his country's constitution a shield, and that shield protects it to this very day. You know, it leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about, no matter what country we live in. If you had to pick one thing, what is the one single pillar, the one part of your own country's basic structure that you believe must be protected, no matter what? It's really a question about what we value most and the promise a nation makes to its people.